a new DC study and calculating ASDCs for the expansion lands works. So that will really help to set the framework for the other tools, and in particular, any developer agreements that are arranged. And we do note that staff have already begun to initiate this process with the goal of having a bylaw in place in the spring. We recommend calculating ASDCs for water, wastewater, and storm services, but that the city should also evaluate the appropriateness of a transportation ASDC. This is also a good opportunity to incorporate the recent changes to the DC Act and incorporate those within the city's DC bylaw. Then second, we recommend increasing the municipal debt servicing limit from the current 7% of revenues. We see two options here. The first being a flat limit of 15% of own source revenues. Another option that some municipalities bring forward is splitting the limits between tax supported and rate supported services, recognizing that most of the front-ended costs will be related to utility services. And if that approach is taken, we anticipate that a 10% limit would be sufficient for the tax-supported services, where you would likely want to increase the rate-supported limit to about 15% to accommodate those needs. Next slide. Now, third is developing a set of policies and agreements to guide the use of the three funding tools that the city might use. So the point here is to set a strong framework and really be proactive in addressing any potential risks associated with these tools. We've included a sample policy for each of them within the appendix of our report, just to help staff to kickstart this process. And then finally, we recommend taking some time to review staff resources and assess whether additional resources might be needed to improve capacity to administer the agreements. So this will really depend on the scale and complexity of the proposals and agreements coming forward once the new official plan comes into force. Next slide. And that concludes our presentation. So thank you very much, and we're happy to take any questions.
So does any member of the committee have any questions for our consultant? Yes, Councillor Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Julia, thank you very much for the presentation. It was very informative. I just have some questions around looking into our future, looking into future capital costs that the city is going to be really required to put forth in the future. Would you see a way forward if, like, as a city, we talk about multi-year budgeting a lot, but we haven't really got to that point yet. As we start bringing these new lands on and getting them serviced, I'm foreseeing quite a big amount of money needing to be spent at the start. So if we were to incorporate a multi-year budget, so we're able to sort of streamline that cost, and hopefully it's not going to be too large of an increase in 1 year, would you see that as a proper way to try to mitigate any increases to the taxpayer?
Yes, through the mayor, I'd be pleased to respond to that. I mean, we always think that multi-year budgeting or long-term financial planning is a good exercise to go through. The city indeed already does some of that. Even the development charge study and the ASDC study that will be undertaken provides an examination of the timing of expenditures versus revenues, which is an input into a multi-year budgeting kind of exercise. And some of the analysis that we've already undertaken has identified where some of those stress points might be. So some of the base work has already been done, which would feed in well to a multi-year budgeting or a long-term financial plan type of exercise.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Vanderstel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Either Julia or Craig, did you undertake a partial, at least, jurisdictional scan of the city of Brantford?
Perhaps through the mayor, just we did a jurisdictional scan. We're very familiar with the current practices and policies within the city, and we looked at other jurisdictions, both broadly from our experience in Ontario and elsewhere across the country. I'm sorry if I'm not fully understanding the question.
Oh, no, sorry. I was just wondering whether or not there's anything anomalous, anything you're seeing in Brantford that you haven't seen in other communities as far as how it breaks down, how far the the budget is broken down, the DC budgets, just and based on the projects that are proposed. Are you seeing anything different than we're doing in other municipalities?
Yes, thank you. Through the mayor, I think that the way, in my experience in working with Brantford for 10 or 15 years now, is that given the nature of the municipality of being sort of an urban, older urban center, that the way that you've established your policies and your practices has been quite consistent with that. Now that you have some additional lands and they're more greenfield in nature, you're seeing some different pressures that you haven't experienced in some time. With respect to the infrastructure needs and demands and that. And that's why you're going through this process today. So I think it's a good step, and we're going through things, and we've got similar communities such as the City of Windsor, who also is going through these sorts of changes. And I think you're setting up the process and policies to adapt to the change that you're experiencing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Greg.
Right. Well, Craig and Julia, I don't see any other raised hands. So again, I want to thank you very much for coming out tonight and presenting the information you've given to us. And I must say, as I said at the Boundary Lands Task Force, a very impressive report. We look forward to receiving promptly the development charges report. So more to come.
Thank you very much.
Very much. All right. So we'll move on then to the debate portion, discussion portion regarding this item. If you're interested in speaking to this, just push the raised hand. Yes, Councillor Weaver.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The city has had a long-standing debt limit window of 7%. And I think we all really do pride ourselves on being in that situation. I think we're the envy of many municipalities that have went right to their 25% limit that they're legally allowed to. I think the reason we have that space in between the 7 and 25% is really so we can do things like this, and it won't be such a high burden to the taxpayer. So I know we have discussed it multiple years in budgets. We talk about the deficit, the deficit amount, the percentage, keeping it at 7 or raising it 1 or 2% to pay for something, and we don't ever seem to really do that. So I think now we really need to have that fulsome discussion, make that determination, and really understand that this is for the future of our city. It's going to be about future growth, and having the ability to use that money now, I think will serve the city and our community very well. So I'll be looking forward to the budget season where I'm sure, no doubt, the debt limit will come up. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Next, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, on the idea of the debt limit, one of the things that we've talked about in the past was setting up keeping the 7% for tax supported debt, but increasing the debt for rate supported. And this would all qualify as rate supported because these debts would be paid back with the development charges that come in for this area. So I don't have a problem with increasing a rate supported aspect of our debt limit. But I certainly won't be in favor of increasing the tax supported debt beyond the 7%. Thank you.
Councillor Carpenter.
Mr. Mayor, I agree with the previous speaker's comments about the rate supported, but the full development charges will not cover the full cost. They're not structured in a way to make sure that development pays for development. Development doesn't pay 100% for development, and the law doesn't allow us to collect 100% of the development fees. So there will be some, for sure, taxpayer supported parts to this. And the idea is that would come back off of the new development increase in taxation off the level of development that happens in the area that we're talking about. So while we may not get it up front, we will get it later. So I agree with the comments that it shouldn't be on the current ratepayers. And I do agree with the idea of having an area supported development charges. And it's important that we get our development charges in well in advance of our official plan being approved, because the laws change there again, that the development fees are calculated based upon when your application for your plan of subdivision is presented. So it's not when you application for building permit fees, when you actually go on the ground. So we can have applications well in advance, but they would be incomplete until we have to know what the area looks like. So I'm in favor, and it is an excellent report, and I'm in favor of the report, but we need to make sure that the debt limit that's raised is raised just for the purposes of this, of the development that's required for us to, infrastructure that's required for us to move this forward. Thank you.
Councilor McCreary.
Mayor, thank you. Well, we're staring down the face of growth and the costs associated with growth. And there's always been a debate about making growth pay for itself. And here you see the chickens coming home to roost to some extent. It's, you know, I agree with what the previous two speakers said, that we could certainly support the debt with respect to rates, but certainly not with taxes. And I can recall a number of years ago when we were looking at debt here, and boy, those interest charges sure make a big impact on the operating statements every year. And what looks good now is going to look pretty darn awful when we begin to see how much we're paying in interest. And I think back to a time before Councillor Martin and I came on, and Councillor Carpenter probably was around then, when there was quite a celebration when the municipality retired its debt, and the following year they encumbered themselves with additional debt, despite the party that was held. So it'll be an interesting debate, and it certainly is a challenge seeing the growth now that it's landing on our doorsteps.
Anyone else wish to speak to it? Yeah, I'll make a couple of comments. You know, I agree with the previous speakers that this report will allow us to pursue the policy that I think we've maintained pretty consistently. And that is that those who primarily benefit from development will pay a lion's share of the costs. And this arrangement, both in terms of development charges and some unique, innovative agreements with builders and developers to front-end load those costs, I think it's demonstrated in other communities that have grown similar to us, such as Barrie and Windsor, that this is the best way, the most manageable, practical way to develop these lands without burdening the taxpayer. And of course, taking on the debt is part of that, because there is a portion to be paid by the municipality. And, you know, I look at this as, this is actually, you know, very exciting. You know, we've had first of all, we had the negotiations with previous council. So we had the lands that brought them in. Then we had the official plan, the master servicing plan. But, you know, to really make these lands come to fruition, you have to be able to pay. You have to have a plan to provide the infrastructure, and you have to have a plan to pay for it. And we're now beginning the road that'll take us to the plan for paying. And that's, you know, that's the key to unlocking the beneficial value of these lands for our community. And, you know, what is the value? Well, the value is that anyone who's looking to rent or own a home, anyone who wants access to some new and really, it'll be really enjoyable green space in that area. And also anybody who wants a job. And so to get that, which is our future growth, our future prosperity, does require that we make an investment as a community in taking on a certain level of debt. But, you know, I have no doubt that the return for us as a community out of these lands, both in terms of jobs, taxes, homes, new and varied urban living experiences, we'll be reaping as a community far more on what we receive from these lands and what we're going to have to invest to make it all possible. So again, I think it's a very momentous day for us. This whole process of the expansion lands, there's been many momentous occasions, and this is one of them. So I'm trying to contain my passion for this. It's hard to get excited about infrastructure and how you pay for it, but I'm excited for it. So, Councillor Rutley, I think you'd like to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to, I'm not sure if this question can be answered at this point in time, but I'm interested to know if there's been a calculation done on the city's capacity with our current assets to accommodate growth in the new lands. And I'm talking specifically on house and business, like filtrated water, stormwater, and sewers and wastewater. So those three things. I'm not sure if that's there's a calculation done on whether we need to expand those facilities, or if we will be at, we can just squeak them in at the capacity that we have on hand right now.
Yeah. So who from staff is going to answer that? Here we go, Mr. Hutchings.
I'm not sure if Russ Lukes is on the phone, who's in charge of the master servicing plan and the transportation master plan. Russ, do you want to speak to this? Okay. So I will speak to it. Yes, Councillor Utley. There he is. Russ, do you want to speak to the question Councillor Utley had?
Or I'm not able to connect too well, so I hope you can see what I've got here. So I believe that through the chair, I believe the question was about asking about the capacity of our stormwater, wastewater, water servicing.
Yeah.
And I think, as you know, we've done a master servicing plan that looks into those kinds of options, and it's identified a number of projects that are required to expand our capabilities in those areas. So I think that's taken into account in the information that we're providing through the development charges process. I don't have anything, I guess I wasn't really prepared for that question, so I don't have any specific items that that might help you in that area, but I can assure you that we've looked into that as part of that master servicing plan.
It's thank you, Russ. I really want to I think everyone on council probably wants to know if the impact that this growth will have on our current water treatment facilities. So I don't really need that information now, but if we could get it, this year or early next year,
through the chair,
there's big money involved. If there's big money involved if we need to increase our capacity. So thank you.
So, Celia, you be able to add to that, or?
Sure. Through you, Mr. Chair. What I can say is that there is a capacity expansion needed for the wastewater plant that is taken into account in the master servicing plan, like Russ Lukes mentioned. And for the water plant, there is expansion needed. So obviously, storm ponds, there are several storm ponds being added to our system. So all those things are taken into account in the master servicing plan, and the costs have been calculated, and the time period to build the systems have been included too.
That's great to know. Thank you very much, Selby.
So do we have any other speakers? Seeing none. Madam Deputy Clerk, let's take the vote on this item.
Item 6.1.1 Fiscal Strategy for the Settlement Expansion Area Lands is approved unanimously on a recorded vote. Those in favor, Councilors Vanderstelt, Celeste Martin, Antosky, Wall, Weaver, Utley, McCreary, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, and Mayor Davis.
Thank you, Julia. So we'll move on to the only other matter that's been separated. And that was a matter that I asked be separated, 6.1.4, the downtown Brantford Colburn Point offering of lands. Since I asked for it to be separated, I haven't given you a heads up on this, Councillor Celeste, but you'd be kind enough to chair this portion of the meeting.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. You want to start? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. It's on the floor, and I believe probably Mr. Mayor, you're itching to speak to it, so please proceed.
Yes. Yeah. You thought I was excited earlier this evening. Now I'm really excited. And, I've been waiting for this night since I was elected mayor 2 years ago. And this is the beginning of what will be a legacy project for our community, you know, that future generations will be able to appreciate and enjoy. And you know what? We've got to get it right. The community expects no less and deserves exactly that from us. And so this is, for the viewers, the Colburn Point is, it's the lands west of the Y, across from the Royal Bank, kitty corner to the Armory, just down from the Lorne Bridge. And you know, no question, this is one of the most, and the city owns those lands. And this is one of the most prominent sites in our community. It's at the western gate to our downtown. It'll be a gateway property, as they call it. And it overlooks our beautiful Grand River, an area of the city that has much history to it. And it must be a project of the highest quality. And it must properly reflect our city's heritage, the pride we have in our city, and prosperity. And also the natural beauty of that area and the history. And it must also reflect our hopes and our aspirations for what we have been and what will become. And in particular, the downtown. I really believe that this will trigger development in that part of the downtown beyond simply the Y, and perhaps even down into the lower downtown, which, you know, has great potential down there. And so we're doing it through a fairly unique method. And it's, you know, typically you might list the property for sale. We're not doing that. You might have an RFP, but the problem with it, which is a request for proposals. The problem with that is you've got to be fairly specific in an RFP when it's a signature property, what it is you're looking for. And so that means in an RFP, you've got to provide those who would be interested in submitting, builders, developers, some idea of what you want. And, you know, that means we probably would have to hire a consultant, maybe rely on staff to give us sort of a concept for that property. This is a really unique way of doing it. It's been done successfully in several other communities in Ontario. It's called an expression of interest. So you're asking those builders, developers who have the experience and the skill set to develop properties of this nature in a really signature way. You ask them, what is it your vision is for this property, knowing what it is we want to accomplish. And then hopefully we receive a number of expressions of interest, and that will then guide us into a more formal RFP where we actually ask those builders and developers who are interested to submit proposals along the lines of what comes out of the expression of interest. So it's a little bit more lengthy than just simply listing the property for sale and just doing an RFP. But I have no doubt that what will come out of this could be, it's not next year, but it's going to be, you know, within the near future, I hope, the end result being, you know, a property that's been developed that is just a source of pride for us in our community. So that's why I'm excited. This is the beginning. Well, the beginning was actually putting all the land together. So that took us about a year to do that. So thank you, Councillor Celeste, for sharing to allow me to say my little excited piece about this.
No problem. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Van Tilburg, you're next.
Yes, I have a question for staff. One is, what would have happened if this wasn't separated? Would we just went to option one automatically? And two, does option one have to be moved as a choice?
Through the chair, Heidi DeVries, City Solicitor, Director of Legal and Real Estate Services. Great question. Yes, if this had not been separated and it would have been taken as recommended, then you would be going forward with option one as a committee, which would be referred to council for final decision.
So should I move option one now?
Through the chair, no, it's not necessary to move option one if you adopt the recommendation as written. If you would like to adopt or move,
that's fine. I just wanted to be 100% clear. So this is going to go. No need for the extra. I have a question on
between the choices and the options that were given, whether you go to the market, whether you put the RFP out there, or whether we have this committee, and how do we ensure, even after everything's said and done, that the visioning that we have or come up with after we do all the work is actually followed through? How is that done? How is it because once it transfers hands, aren't they still, once again, regardless, able to do what they please?
So through the chair, this is a tough question. As you can see from the other options we've set out in the report, that has been considered by staff. So if we were to just list the lands for sale, requiring a private developer to build the very thing that we want to be built would be very difficult to effect just using the planning tools available to us. There are some other tools, for instance, restrictive covenants, which say that you can't do certain things with the site, options to purchase that would then push the end purchaser to fulfill certain conditions, and if they don't, then the city could reacquire the land. We use those sometimes for our industrial lands where we want to avoid land banking, for instance. I know this council is very familiar with those types of tools. In this case, the reason why we are recommending an expression of interest is because we want to see, as His Worship mentioned, what the development community will come up with in terms of a really interesting and sort of celebratory architectural feature on these lands. I say celebratory in terms of celebrating what Brantford is, what it's becoming, and where we have come from. And we want to be able to work with the eventual developer. And so there are a number of ways that we could affect that. An expression of interest does not bind you to the sale of the land. It does not bind you to a specific outcome. It really is a fairly fluid process, and it's more of a conversation. If one particular submission excites council, you could actually negotiate directly with the proponent who submitted at that time and enter into a number of different arrangements in terms of the end build on that land, including some of the other options you have below, should you choose to avoid a full RFP process, which is really a lot more limiting in terms of your end outcome. So I'm answering in a rather circuitous way. I want to acknowledge that because the eventual build is actually one step away. So what we're looking for right now is for the development community to propose to us what they would do with these lands. And then what we do with that information is either a direct negotiation, going to an RFP, looking at a land lease, looking at maybe even one of these options or a partnership option. That will be the second step in this process. And we don't have to go too far to look for exceptional developers who have shown an interest in Brantford.
Wonderful. That was a great answer. The other part is there's an artist conception here. Who created this, and based on what guidelines?
We can answer this, Councillor Van Tilburg, but you're out of time.
Give me another shot and put me on the list again.
Okay. Councillor Martin, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to support this tonight. I'm glad to see this is finally here. This is what I was asking for when we were first expropriating these lands. This was the part that was missing from the plan at that time. And that's part of the reason why I voted against the land expropriation. But it's good to see that this is here now, and I'm happy with the way this is progressing. And I'd like to thank current staff for doing what previous staff failed to do and bring us this report tonight to get going on this option. I'm really excited to see this go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you, Councillor Sless. I'm happy to support this as well. I think the mayor's excited. He should be excited. We're all excited about this. We knew this when we expropriated the land, that there'd be big interest in this location, and that's why we didn't give that location to Laurier and the Y, because this is a very prominent location in the city. It's looking over the Grand River, over Lauren Bridge. It's very high profile spot in the city's downtown. And I think that the way we're doing this is the right way. To what kind of development do we want to see? Who's got the best vision for this corner, and whether we have how much peopling is going to be there, what height it's going to be. All those things will come forward as part of that. I'm glad we didn't do it back when we expropriated the land, when the land was very cheap in Brantford. I'm glad we're doing it now while everybody's excited about Brantford and everybody wants to pay top dollar for what Brantford is, because Brantford, they know Brantford's the place to go, as Walter Gretzky's been saying for years. It's the center of the universe. We've always known that, and I guess we weren't so excited about everybody else finding out about it because Brantford's growing dramatically, and we know the interest is here in Brantford. So I'm happy that this is moving forward now as well, and that we're doing it now when the land prices are way up there. And secondly, I just want to say that we did provide money for Wilfrid Laurier and the Y on that land that they're in. They didn't build what we had agreed to, a larger facility. And there's a piece of land that's left there. I'd like us to look into taking that land back as part of the agreement, because that land wasn't used. And we can also sell that land as well as part of the Colburn Street side. That's another venue for us to get some funding. But I agree with the mayor. This is exciting, and we should be seeing some really interesting proposals come back. And I'm excited that the ward councilors are involved as well. Thank you.
Good. Councilor McCreary, you're next.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Well, this is another step in the renaissance of our downtown district. And certainly those that have lived in Brantford for a while have seen it bottom out. And if you look at the activity that we've encouraged down there in the last number of years, we're certainly pointed in the right direction. This is somewhat reminiscent of the Civic Square project that we did a number of years ago, where we had a call for submissions, and we had, I believe, 2 at the time, which competed against one another, and the successful one is there on the ground now, including the park and skating rink. And that was an asset that we performed. And if you look at the architecture around that building, say what you will about it, it's an expression which is very interesting. The same with the YMCA building. It certainly generates a lot of interest. I'm not sure, it's been up there a couple of years. I'm still not sure whether I like it or not. And that's what good architecture should do. It should evoke emotion and discussion, right? And certainly that building does that. And I see an opportunity for us to do that at the corner here as well. It is the gateway to the downtown, and it should express the nature of the community, and it should be a focal point for your entry into that district. Certainly bearing witness to the loss of the 41 heritage buildings, which are in the landfill. This is the culmination of that process as well. So we owe it to the community to make sure that what gets built there is not an affront to the eye, as we've seen built sometimes in this community in the past. I think Councillor Martin and I, or Councillor Carpenter and I, made the suggestion a number of years ago that we proceed with development in these properties. And for one reason or another, staff didn't seem willing at the time. I would like to thank staff for moving this forward tonight. I know it's been a bit of time in the coming for the current staff. And I would just like to express my complete faith in what they've done so far and what's remaining to become. I'm looking forward to the process as it unfolds. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor McCreary. Councilor Wall.
I mean, yes, I'm also very excited. This is incredible. I think it's worth noting that given the option to take this property and then just sell it to a private developer and let them do whatever it wants, that this council is deciding to do it in this very unique, well, we haven't decided yet, but hopefully we're going to decide to do it in this very unique manner. And to, have this opportunity to be able to, as everyone around here is saying, show off Brantford, what makes Brantford great, partnerships and community and history and culture and heritage and art, and to do something extravagant on the gateway into the downtown. I mean, many of you know, I grew up downtown. Downtown is my home, and it is the part of the city that I probably spend the most time in. And how cool is this? How cool is this? Is the stuff that we get to do. So kudos to everybody. I hope, obviously, that everyone supports it. And I can't wait to be a part of this process. And I will be picking everybody else's brain too, because I really do think that this is going to be a really great thing for our community. And yeah, I'm excited, to say the least.
Thank you, Councillor Wall. Are there any other first-time speakers? Then Councillor Van Tilburg for a second time.
Sure. I'm looking at the artist's conception. How long ago was this picture done? When was this made?
Good evening, Council. Kevin Finney, Director of Economic Development and Tourism, through Mr. Chair. A lot of these concepts within the marketing brochure are from actual documents that have been approved in the past as well as forthcoming. So some of the concepts shown are from the 2008 Downtown Master Plan, as well as some of the new concepts proposed in the official plan coming forward in February.
Okay, so that's part of it. So when was this particular concept put forward? This artist drawing?
through you, Mr. Chair, without seeing which one you're pointing at there, Councillor Van Tilburg, it's hard for me to
Oh,
say.
they're not there. I don't see. It's on page 6.
It should have a source attributed to that figure, which will say
Okay.
the document it's referencing.
Very
Paul
good.
might have some further insight.
Hi, good evening. So that rendering on page 6, that's from the urban design guidelines that are being prepared as part of the brand new official plan. So that rendering is, just a few months old. This was presented to council just last month. And this is just prepared by our consultant who is working on the urban design guidelines, SGL planning and design.
Okay, very good. And the other part I'm kind of going through the numbers and I'm not quite clear when I see the lots. Are they put together? Is it 2 acres or is it less than? I believe that's what I was looking at. 2 acres?
Hello, Ron Gasparetto, manager of real estate. The total area is 2.16 acres, but there'll be allowances for easements and other infrastructure. So the total acreage really hasn't been determined yet, but it's going to be, between, I would say 1.8 acres to it won't be the 2.16 because we know there's infrastructure that has to be protected. So.
Okay, that's what I was asking. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's everything.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other speakers? Seeing none, if you could call the vote then, please, Madam Clerk.
Downtown Brantford Colburn Point offering of lands is approved unanimously on a recorded vote. Those in favor, Councillors Vanderstelt, Celeste Martin, Antosky, Wall, Weaver, Utley, McCreary, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, and Mayor Davis.
Thank you. It's all yours, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Celeste, for doing that for me. I appreciate it. All right, those are the items that were separated. We have one item left. We don't have any notices of motion, but of course we do have a resolution. And it's item 7.1, Power of Attorney Resources. Councillor Carpenter, it's your motion. So would you please move and read it and tell us who your seconder is?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My seconder is my ward mate, Councillor Cheryl Antosky. And whereas seniors are the fastest growing age group in Ontario, and by 2041 it is projected that in the city of Brantford and the county of Brant, 25 to 30% of residents will be age 65 and older, me amongst them. Whereas older adults can be more vulnerable to the misuse of power, fraud, and financial abuse, particularly if the individual is experiencing symptoms of Alzheimer's, dementia, or other cognitive challenges. And whereas the elder abuse awareness and prevention was identified as a 2021-2022 council priority, and whereas elder abuse awareness and prevention strategy is a key component of the city of Brantford's healthy aging plan. And whereas power of attorney is a legal document in which an individual gives care and control of their personal and financial affairs to a trusted person. And whereas the power of attorney can be an important tool in preventing elder abuse, provided it is used ethically and in the best interest of the person needing support. And whereas the uses, rights, and responsibilities of power of attorney may not be well understood by the general public, and whereas the greater public understanding of power of attorney may serve to better protect older adults in Brantford from elder abuse. Now, therefore, being resolved that staff consult with community partners, including the Grand River Council on Aging, the Elder Abuse Awareness Committee, Elder Abuse Ontario, the Community Legal Clinic, and the Seniors Resource Center, and provide a report to Council by March 31st, 2021, detailing the following: a project plan to deliver workshops, webinars, or other methods to provide information to the public regarding the use of power of attorney, with all required costs and resources. A communications plan to support public awareness of these information sessions with all required costs and resources, the feasibility of a locally developed power of attorney database, including consideration of privacy, legality, and required resources. Opportunities for the Brantford City Council to advocate to other levels of government for stronger protections for older adults who may be vulnerable to all forms of elder abuse. And if I may speak to it, I've already met with our MPP, Will Bowman, many months ago about this concern, not having a registry anywhere for people for power of attorney and how power attorneys are determined. And I was surprised to find this didn't exist actually anywhere across the country. I know there was movements in the House by recommendation in the House in Ontario to have such a registry. But that's why this resolution is been working with the legal staff for many months on this to determine what's doable, what's not doable. So this is a report to come back to council with what is doable. I would encourage members of council to look on our website. We often get criticized for what we don't do well, but there's a lot of things that we do darn well. And if you look at our healthy living site on the website, where we've got the seniors toolkit, we've got brand elder abuse provider protocol. I'm involved with the brand elder abuse, and we have developed a protocol for agencies of what the protocol would be for determining elder abuse, what questions you ask and how you determine. And that's been rolled out to all the agencies with the help of those agencies. When we did this protocol, we got funding for it. And recently we just, the Brand Elder Abuse Committee got the only grant, as Will Bowman has told us, in the province on funding for education for elder abuse in the community. And we're just starting to roll that out now. So there is organizations that know how this stuff works and how we can make this better. And we do a good job of it now. And this just helps us to do a better job of getting more information coming forward. So really it's a request for information, and it's been discussed already with the social services and all the departments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carpenter. So next speaker, Councillor Utley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to thank Councillor Carpenter for bringing this forward. I don't know if you've ever seen a program on PBS called The Guardians. And thank God this is an organization that is in the US and mostly in the southern US. And this corporation gets a court order through a local judge who they're friendly with, and they get a court order to take over a person's property. And usually it's seniors who are reasonably well off. And one of the partners in that marriage gets taken away to a kind of care home prison. And then the corporation takes control over the bank accounts, property, and every asset the couple have. It's the scariest, one of the scariest programs or scams I've ever seen in my life. People that have worked hard all their life get everything they've worked for in their life, they get it taken away from them by these evil people. If you ever see it come up on TV, it's well worth watching. I don't ever want to see that happen in Canada. So we need this sort of bylaw in Brantford to support our seniors. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Wall, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I just wanted to comment quickly and to say how great this is. This is it's a really great motion, and I think the whole idea behind it, it's just good. I hear a lot of stories from people in my ward. I mean, we have an aging population in Ward 5, and there's just not enough resources out there for seniors. And I think that there's going to be a spillover, that this is going to help more than just seniors, and helping raise awareness of exactly what power of attorney is and how it all works. And I was just going to make a commentary about, in the list of people they should work with, the neighborhood associations I was hoping could be in there, because I think that that's a great source. So if it's a friendly amendment, I'd like to just add the word neighborhood associations in there.
You got the thumbs up from Councillor Carpenter, and Councillor Antosky's nodding her head. I think that's friendly.
Awesome. I can't wait to tell people about this when it comes to fruition. And I think that very similar to some other things that we've done here recently, this is a great thing for the Neighbors Helping Neighbors campaign that we've launched, which I hope after COVID never goes away, because this whole idea of having a repository of all the different city services or non-city services, this is great. I'm happy to support it. Good work.
Councillor McCurry.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor. Well, I'd like to also thank Councillor Carpenter for bringing this forward. I know this is an issue that he cares deeply about, and for which he's done good work in past, and typically dealing with seniors issues. I hope the councillor and the seconder would accept my friendly amendment that they also consult with the Chamber of Commerce, whose membership includes most of the law firms and paralegals in the city of Brantford. I see that's accepted. And I do want to comment. Councillor Carpenter said something very telling a bit earlier. He said that we don't get a lot of recognition for a lot of the good things that the corporation of the city of Brantford does, and a lot of the good initiatives that come out of the work that we do. And when he said that, I'm thinking back to an initiative that Councillor Utley brought in the last cycle to invest in a few lawn signs people could put on their lawns to tell drivers to slow down. And in this day and age, even that met with criticism from some of the trolls in this community who found fault with it. And no matter what good work we do, there's always somebody that's going to find fault with it. And probably tomorrow you'll read about this on Facebook, and somebody will be crapping all over it. And that's, that is because, as Councillor Carpenter said, we don't tell our own story well enough in this community about the good things that the corporation of the city of Brantford does for residents. And I would like to see us redouble our efforts to properly communicate what goes on in the corporation with the citizens that we represent and who pay our way. They're just not told the story that they need to be told about what's going on in their own community. So, Mayor, I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
All right. Next, Councillor Antosky, then Van Tilburg and Vanderstel. So, Councillor Antosky.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to second this, as many members have stated already. This is important, not just for the senior or the person that one becomes a power of attorney for, but the person who is named as power of attorney, because I think quite often people say, oh yeah, sure, and really don't understand the implications and how difficult of a job it can be and how emotionally straining it can be. And also to know the warning signs of when the wrong person is the power of attorney and there's some issues. So I'm glad to see that we're looking at this. I'm glad that we're looking at having some sort of a centralized method to be able to find who is the power of attorney, because maybe the one person that has just died is the last person left and nobody knows who the power of attorney is. So this is really important stuff. It's confusing to a lot of people. It is something that many people will never deal with, or have, will deal with once in their lifetime. So to have the information at their hand in a way that makes it real and understandable is great for our seniors and for the people involved or who may be involved in their near future. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Van Tilburg.
I must congratulate the mover of this resolution. So many things are taken for granted, and we put our trust into people, and the vast majority it goes fine. But man, when you hear some of the horror stories, they are exactly that. Families are devastated. The last thing that somebody can do is they're trying to put their lives in the trust of someone else. And it can be an untrustworthy person. And truthfully, I myself, I don't know how any of this works. And you don't know how it works until it's that time. And that's probably the biggest thing. And so people get very limited resources on how to go forward. And I think when I look at all the people who are involved in this resolution to consult and to bring forward the information, I don't know. I'm waiting to hear the feasibility of the database, but that might be the trickier part. But the rest of it is very, we should have been doing this from the get-go, or somebody should have. And the fact that this is going to go forward and that's going to be there as a resource, and the funny part is that probably one of the best resources to distribute to the seniors is the Seniors Resource Center. So, once this comes through, it's going to go full circle and be very much appreciated, I'm sure, by families who are looking for safety and security when this difficult time comes. So thank you, mover and seconder.
Thank you, Councillor Van Tilburg. Councillor Vanderstel, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to better understand that the word crap is parliamentary language, and I will keep that under advice. I'm so happy to see this forward. This is a pioneer piece of legislation. through you, despite the fact that it may seem that we are diametrically opposed on some issues. On this, I support Councillor Carpenter 100%. Not only that, I'd like to break the ice on that. Councillor Carpenter's coming on 3 years of dedicated service to veterans, to the elderly, to populations in our community that are often forgotten or underserviced. I want to acknowledge that, and I want to applaud that. And Councillor Carpenter, directly, thank you for this. This is a great piece of legislation. It's going to help, like you always do, so many people circumnavigate these delicate and dangerous times and issues. I appreciate your efforts and your willingness to corroborate and work with others to the same effect. You should be commended for this. I support it 100%. Thank you.
Next, Councillor Weaver.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I think we'd all be remiss if we didn't actually mention a few other people tonight. So as previously stated, this is great work by Councillor Carpenter, and he's very committed to this over the years that I've had the pleasure of working with him. But I think we all have to also remember Dave LeBac. He was a huge supporter of the elderly, and in fact, I think he was the one that coined this silver tsunami. At least I believe it was him. So just we have many city champions in our city. Dave LeBac is obviously one of them, but when you take a look at the Grand River of Council of Aging, just take a look at their board. I mean, their board is community members that have been contributing to our community and making Brantford a better place for decades. Includes just city staff. Shout out to Mary Ellen. There's just so many people that are part of that committee, and it's no wonder that committee is doing great work for the citizens of our city. So I'm happy to support this, and thank you to the mover and seconder.
I see Councillor Kirby, you want to speak a second time, but I'd like to speak to this. And I can speak to this with a little bit of knowledge. As a lawyer, I drafted hundreds of powers of attorney. So I think this is a very good resolution. I'll tell you why in a minute. But as an indication of how much I support this effort, Councillor Carpenter, I'm going to give the first webinar on power of attorney. And people go, well, what's a power of attorney? And I'm thinking, well, attorney means lawyer. Am I appointing a lawyer? Well, no. Attorney is an American expression for lawyer. In Canada, it means agent. So power of attorney means you're appointing someone to be your agent to do things for you when you can't. And that typically could be matters involving bank accounts, applying for disability insurance, maintaining your home, paying bills, things that are of a financial nature. And then there's also powers. So that what that does is the person you appoint, typically it's a family member you trust. You're appointing them when you can no longer do those things yourself. You're appointing them to do that in your name. And just think of this. It doesn't necessarily mean for older people. It could be you're younger and you've been in a car accident, you have a head injury, and you're not conscious. And so someone has to administer, if you have a home, take care of the home, take care of your financial affairs. They're also used in the case, they're called power of attorney for medical purposes. And that is you're in the hospital, you're not able to give the doctor or the social worker, the nurses, any instructions in your care. And then they're looking for them, the medical staff. Who do we take directions from? And a power of attorney for medical purposes tells them who they can take direction from. And I've got to tell you, so you may think, okay, well, that's fine. But so is that really important? Yes, it is. Because if you're in the hospital and you've suffered something like a stroke or a head injury, you know, the medical staff, it really is for their benefit if they know who they can go to get direction regarding your care. Typically, also, if you want to have this, if this happens and you don't have a power of attorney, then what do your family members do? Well, potentially they have to apply to the court for a guardianship order. You know, and thousands of dollars later, they get an order from the court appointing them as the legal agent to manage your affairs for you. Whereas if you've done a power of attorney, they just simply use the power of attorney. So it's a tremendous tool that I don't think many people don't understand the value of the tool. They're not that expensive. There are many organizations that provide them free of charge. They're really not that complicated. So it's highly recommended that people of all ages have a power of attorney in addition to a will, and especially for older people as well. The last thing is, it's kind of interesting, Councillor Carpenter, this issue of a database, because if you want to find out who owns a property, you go to the registry office. And you can, with the land address, you can find out who owns that property and who owns any mortgages. But, the problem with the power of attorney is, I've seen it happen many times. The family, the children, their mother's in the hospital, and they think, yeah, she had a power of attorney. Where is it? And then they're running around to different lawyer offices in town trying to find the power of attorney, because that's generally where they'll be. Or maybe mother put it in her desk drawer at home. And, a database similar to finding out who owns a property would allow family members who are trying to find a power of attorney to take care of their loved one, they can go and find it. Or even would help medical staff if they want to find out if this person that they're caring for, did they have a power of attorney? This would give them, I guess, subject to privacy issues, access to find out if there is that power of attorney, which can often be very important for medical staff as they're treating someone. So in terms of the public information, public knowledge about these documents, how they're used, how important they are, how you can do one, where you can get it done, and the database. And of course, even if you have power of attorney, there can still be abuse, right? No matter what protections you have. So increasing public awareness about, elder abuse is important as well. So glad to support it. Good effort. So, Councillor Carpenter, you can do the wrap on this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to my fellow councillor colleagues, I really appreciate all the accolades, but it's not me. It's the Elder Abuse Committee. It's the members that are on there that have been working tirelessly for years. That it made the suggestion. It was a seminar that we held on power of attorney when the members from the committee are all around from all agencies in the community that provide support. And it was a member on the Grand River Council on Aging, Lucy Marco's committee, that raised this issue of power of attorney when we both at the same seminar, that there really wasn't a registry. And I was just flabbergasted that there wasn't a registry anywhere. And I understand a registry, of course, would have to be voluntary. Anything you make mandatory doesn't work that well. But it would be encouraged to, like the mayor says, having someplace that if you're going to the hospital staff need to know who's making this decision about your health that you can't make any longer. And they need to find that power of attorney, and they need to find it quick. And they need to make those choices. And if you don't have a power of attorney, you go to the public guardian. In fact, maybe that's where, if we did one provincially, that's where it could be held, at the public guardian's office. It wouldn't cost much. It's just all electronic, but that's one of the suggestions. But we need the registry so that we can protect people. And as the mayor said, there's two power of attorneys, the one for your health and one for your wealth. And you can designate them as you like, and you can take them off and change them as you like too. And so educating the seniors about their power of attorney and who has power. I've had lots of calls as chair of this committee from residents that say they're complaining about a sister or a brother that's taking care of their mother. And I'm not sure who's right about who's really has the best interest of mom or dad at heart. And there needs to be some way about getting involved with that. And I want to also say that, when I talk about our website, we do have one of the best websites about talking about taking care of seniors in our community. And we should all be proud of it. We should go to it and look at it. It's fantastic. And Elder Abuse Ontario has recognized it. And the only other region that I know of in Ontario that's as good as, or maybe better than us, is the Peel region. They're much larger, of course, and they provide services directly too as well. So again, as I think Councilman McCray pointed out, we do a lot of things well, and sometimes we don't tell everybody, but we've got a fantastic protocol. We got our seniors toolkit with this digitized. You can go on that site, any senior, go on the city's website, just type in healthy Brantford, and you'll get the information, and you can go on on that toolkit and find out any resources that you possibly need. You can just type in the resource that you're looking for, and that number and that information will come up. We update it regularly because, of course, the executive directors change and the phone numbers might change, but thank you for your accolades, but it's staff that put this together this way and spent a lot of time on it to do it. So it's out of our legal department that led the charge here. So I want to thank them and congratulate them for the good work they did on this.
Great. So with that, Madam Deputy Clerk, would you please take the vote?
Item 7.1, power of attorney resources and information for seniors is approved with the two friendly amendments unanimously on a recorded vote. Those in favor, Councilors Vanderstelt, Celeste Martin, Antosky Wall, Weaver, Utley, McCreary, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, and Mayor Davis.
All right, so we have no other resolutions, no notices of motion, no other business for this evening. So with that, this meeting is adjourned until council next Tuesday.
Good night,
Good night,
everyone.
everyone.
Good night.
Hi, everyone. Stay safe.